It was a dark and stormy night, and the parents of the children she was babysitting had just left for a dinner party. The babysitter was left alone with the two young children, and after putting them to bed, she settled in to watch a movie. As she watched the movie, she heard strange noises coming from outside. She tried to ignore it, but the noises only grew louder and more persistent. Eventually, she decided to investigate and went outside to see what was causing the commotion. As she stepped outside, the wind whipped her hair and rain soaked her clothes. She shivered as she scanned the yard for any sign of the source of the noise. Suddenly, movement caught her eye. She squinted into the darkness and saw a shadowy figure moving along the fence line. Her heart began to race as she realized that someone was out there, watching her. She hurried back inside, locking the doors and windows behind her. She tried to convince herself that it was just the wind, but deep down, she knew that something wasn't right. She spent the rest of the evening in a state of heightened alert, jumping at every little noise. The next night, the parents went out again, leaving the babysitter alone with the children once more. This time, the babysitter was on high alert, and every little noise made her jump. She was in the middle of putting the children to bed when she heard a knock at the door. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice shaking. There was no response, just silence. She approached the door cautiously and looked through the peephole, but there was no one there. She checked the locks on the door, and everything seemed secure. But the sense of unease that had been growing inside her for the past few nights intensified as the night wore on. The babysitter couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. She was about to settle down on the couch to watch a movie when the phone rang. "Hello," she answered. There was no response, just silence on the other end of the line. She said hello again, but still there was no response. Just as she was about to hang up, she heard a whisper, "I'm watching you." Her heart pounding, she hung up the phone and immediately called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house, but found no signs of a break-in or any evidence of someone watching her. The babysitter was left feeling scared and alone, with no explanation for the strange occurrences. Over the next few days, the babysitter couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She was constantly looking over her shoulder, always on edge. The parents of the children she was babysitting were sympathetic, but they didn't seem to take her fears seriously. Then one day, the parents received a package in the mail. It contained a letter and a videotape. The letter was anonymous, but it claimed to have evidence of the babysitter being watched. The parents were skeptical at first, but when they watched the video, they were horrified. The video showed footage of the babysitter being watched through the windows of the house. The figure was shrouded in darkness, so it was impossible to identify them. But the implication was clear. Someone had been watching the babysitter, and they had been doing it for a long time. The parents immediately contacted the police, but the investigation didn't